Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors in Winston, Chester. I'm so glad you're here this morning. We have a great show and two guests in the studio, but first let's get our weather brought to us by Haney Technical. We're looking at another cool day. It's going to get all the way up to 57, low of 34 tonight. So that's pretty close to freezing here on the coast. So we got some really good cold coming in, but the water temperature, that's what fascinates me this morning, folks, 68.4. It is really warmed up over the weekend. I guess all that wind all blew some more of that warm water up this way. Those currents are sort of getting close to the shore now. The river readings, we're looking at Apalachicola, Bluntstown, 17.6, and it's rising. It's amazing how high that river has been for so long. The Choctahatchee at Caryville, same story. It's right at 10 foot. 10 foot on Choctahatchee is high. So a lot of high water, and just be aware of that if you get out in your boat in the river and around the sticks and all. Now, a tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn right here on 23rd Street. We're looking at one tide today. It's going to be a low tide at 5:49 and a high tide at 6:47. Today is March the 5th. We've got a pretty good tide, but this weekend we've got some neap tides coming up, so plan your trip accordingly. Marine forecast pretty strong now to the north at about 12 to 13. Let's take our break, come back with our guest. Welcome back, and look who's here this morning. Greg Brudnicki.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Greg.
That's what happens when you leave the door open. Anybody's liable to walk in.
My buddy Bill. I tried to keep him out, but he came on in anyway. So glad to have you. I tried to get you on the other day and all. You just been so busy.
Yes, sir.
And Bill finally drug you up here.
Yeah.
Well, let's start from the beginning, because I haven't talked to you since the storm and all. Let's go back to when the storm hit. So let's talk about your family and what y'all do and everything.
Well, you know, we were, I was on every major news network the night before and the 2 nights before that, warning everybody to leave.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was so much going on, there was so much hype, and because of all of the previous storms that we've had that have pretty much been non-events, it was very hard to convince people to go. And we probably had 20% of the people leave rather than 80, which should have left.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people left on our beach. And our beach wasn't hit nearly as bad as Panama City and heading east. So it created a different type of situation that normally we're not used to with hurricanes here. And so that night, of the hurricane, I went out with our city manager and our police chief, and we were driving around looking, and it was really, really scary to the standpoint that we were thinking about a lot of mass casualties, and it was just, the devastation was astounding, and of course not being able to see. But the worst part of it was that our lack of communication. You know, when we had Verizon went down and we had very limited service from AT&T, you know, we couldn't find out if Grandma was alive, and Grandma couldn't call us. And so from that standpoint, people were kind of in a zone that they had never been in, because we have all learned to depend on this level of communication that's now been taken away. So it created a scary scenario that we had to do a lot of improv to get the word out to people. You know, I was on the radio when there was 1 or 2 radio stations available, getting information out. It was very hard for us to communicate with our emergency management center because communication was gone there also.
Wow.
And so we learned a lot from this storm, and it was something that I will certainly never forget.
At what point, you know, right around that night, you just sort of seeing everything developing, it's almost like in a movie scene. So at what point did y'all realize, like, it's really, really going to get really bad? Was it around midnight of that morning, or I mean, what?
Well, you know, I don't remember exactly what time it was, but we drove around. I know going through the parking lot over there at my funeral home, I saw, looked like the garage door was pushed in. I said, oh, it doesn't look too bad over there. Little did I know that the roof was breached and I had 4 inches of water inside the building.
Oh,
We're still probably a month away from having that back in order. But the amount of, when you see all these power lines down and you see all the, all the different stuff that's laying everywhere and the trees and the devastation, and you can't really see it that well that night. The next day, it kind of, when the first light, you could really see it, and didn't do a lot of sleeping for that time frame. We realized that it was going to take a yeoman's effort to really get us going, and that process started with Gulf Power coming in, and with all the different agencies affiliated with power agencies all over the United States coming in and getting that back in order. My biggest fear was, and that's when I went to the hospitals, I went to the rehab centers, went to all of the different nursing home facilities and stuff, and over the next week or two visited major employers like Eastern and the paper mill, trying to find out what we could do to help. The most important thing with the hospitals was they were both out of commission. So we had ambulance services that were being provided by the state to take all the patients from our hospitals. We filled up every hospital all the way to Mobile.
Wow.
Our nursing homes were devastated. We had no child care centers. The schools, and just the fact that everyone was so totally displaced, the organization that it took to get people to the point where here's where we know where we need to be, and it's hard to do that when you can't communicate. So we were, it was an ordeal.
It was amazing and all, and of course you live in the Cove, and everybody down there, y'all got pounded in the Cove area too. I know your house, what happened on your house?
Yeah, I probably had $150,000 worth of damage, which is compared to a lot of people over there. I mean, everybody has their horror stories, but this was like Baghdad and the trees were the missiles. Because the beautiful, wonderful trees that we have, we're a tree city, and to see, trees that were well over 100 years old come down and land on whatever they landed on, just created a scene that you couldn't create in a movie by just thinking about how much devastation happened. And these microbursts from the storm, it's when we talk about the trees, our water level now has gone up. I don't know if it's up a couple of feet because we've got a lot of trees that are gone, and a pine tree. Some of these trees will absorb 50 to 100 gallons of water a day. Well, if they're not absorbing that water, then from that standpoint,
we're seeing that all over.
And then with the extra rain,
All right, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. Okay, all right, two good friends of mine, great outdoorsmen, two great guys. I always tickle to have them on. Greg, and Bill, I know you had damage, we talked about yours and all, but let's talk about right now the state we're in as far as the cleanup and all that, and volunteers and hard work and all that. So I know you're right there on the front line. So what's going on as far as that?
Well, this storm, from a degree of devastation, the debris has defined this storm. As a comparison, you look at Hurricane Irma, over 50 counties had 2,350,000 cubic yards of debris, okay? We've already picked up, just in our 18 square mile footprint of Panama City, 3.6 million cubic yards. We've picked up 1.3 million more cubic yards within the city, just in Panama City.
About half.
And well, it really depends because we're looking at personal property debris to pick up now, but the whole county has picked up north of 12 million cubic yards. So you figure 6 to 8 times what was over 50 counties. And that amount of debris in that small an area takes time to pick up. Now, what the total number is going to be over the whole region of the storm, I don't know. But it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, okay? And so, but you have to get all the trash out of the way before you can start the economic engine of the city and the county. And so we're methodically going through and doing all that. The difference between this storm and a lot of other storms when you talk about FEMA is a lot of these expenses have to be paid immediately when you've got that much immediate damage that has to be paid for. Normally, if you had 2,350,000 cubic yards of debris over 50 counties, that might be $75 or $100,000, $200,000 or $300,000 in each one of those cities. Well, you're talking about for us, our debris bill for the city of Panama City, by the time we figure out picking up everything that was normally in people's yards and commercial property, the 35 miles of stormwater ditches, and all of the debris that is at both marinas could be $150 million.
That's to clean up.
Now,
that's incredible.
Putting that in perspective, our normal budget for the city of Panama City for all enterprise funds and general revenue funds is only $90 million.
Holy cow.
So we've had to go out and borrow. So far, we've borrowed $50 million, and we're going to be borrowing another $25 million. Thank the Lord that we were in a very strong financial position that we could go out and do that so that we could keep the debris trucks here and keep going. Now, through this process, we've had a lot of, in the past, our people from Panama City and the county, when we had storms in other places, were very quick. I know I remember taking things to Louisiana and stuff like that for helping people. We've had so much volunteerism that has come into our area to help people. It's astounding. The money that's been brought in, the food that's been brought in, different companies coming in, different church organizations, religious organizations coming in to help people in these devastating situations. I know that we have logged in Panama City alone over $14 million worth of volunteerism.
Wow.
It is
That's just in Panama City. So
just in Panama City. There's no telling how much it is in so many other areas.
That's really cool. So I guess you got some good help along. You got your staff. You got a great staff of people helping you.
Our employees really had to step up from the city. We had well over 100 of them that had no home.
Yeah.
That we had to find them a place to stay, and also they needed to come to work. And we operated out of a Verizon tent for weeks, you know, and then after that we moved into A.D. Harris School. And so, I mean, it's just like in my funeral home, we had a little small container building in the back. You know, we were operating out of the garage in a container building, and then trying to find, all the churches were devastated. You only had 3 or 4 churches that were available to even use for services. But people, the improv and the resiliency, I'm so proud of the resiliency of our children. You know, I mean, right now, we've got about, I believe it's between 48 and 4,900 children in our community that are kind of couch surfing. In other words, they're staying at, they're not.
That's a good term.
You know, they're not sleeping in a car, but they're having to sleep at a friend's house or a neighbor's house or a relative's house, you know, trying to be able to, and then they still have to be responsible for going to school. And it's truly amazing, the resiliency of people. All these elderly that had to be moved from nursing homes and taken to nursing homes in other areas. Some of them moved 4, 5, and 6 times, you know, and already in a state of trauma. To be able to deal with that, it's been quite an ordeal.
Yeah, and so what we're going to look forward to now is our future, what the future holds for the Panhandle, and in particular, since you're mayor in Panama City and all. So we're going to take our final break talking about all these good things that happen that's going to be happening to us. So we'll be right back.
Good.
Welcome back. Here with Greg and Bill. Let's look at our fishing game times today. 11:21 to 1:21, and tonight 11:42 to 1:42. Brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers. Bill, houseboat.
Hey, I've just been sitting here fascinated by it because I hear a lot about this. We fortunately get to talk, but you know, we all learned a lesson. I said this before, you know, when the news coverage stops, we still have the disaster, right? So it's not headlines anymore, but we're living with it, and there's a snowball effect. And there's so many things that I've learned about from Greg that I would have never learned about. You know, I mean, it's an ongoing, during, you know, the emergency operations center when all that was going on. I mean, he won't tell you, but he was working 20 out of 24 hours a day. And now, the truth is, it's not much difference. You know, that phone's going all the time because there's ongoing negotiations with FEMA for reimbursement, you know, still coordinating, you know, the efforts for the trash pickup. And then something near and dear to all of us, as well as to Greg deeply, is the condition of the boat ramps. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a domino effect, and we're all still in the middle of it. And you saw so many people, and continue to see people volunteering and neighbors helping each other. I mean, what a tremendous community. You know, you really see what people are made of, you know, during this time. But it's like the work to try to establish the marinas or get back to where we can put boats in the water and try to, you know, normalcy is fishing, and we haven't fished since October.
Yep.
You know, so the marinas and the efforts to get these open, to me, is amazing.
So what's going on with that?
Well, what we're trying to do right now, we've had FWC and Florida State and our fire department together working with sonar to locate all the debris at the marina downtown. And we want to get that boat ramp open. We're hoping probably within the next 6 weeks to get it open, but we've got to get the trash out of the way. We estimate between $20 and $30 million worth of debris that is on the bottom.
Underwater.
Whoa. All the covers, the boats that were out there that were devastated. I mean, it got demolished. And a lot of that's been picked up, but there's a tremendous amount that's there, and it's a hazard. And you cannot allow people to it's not safe to be able to go over there and use that. So the first place that we're going to try to get cleaned up is going to be that boat landing on the marina.
Good.
The next 3 Fridays, they're going to be the FWC and Florida State will have the sonar over at St. Andrews Marina.
Okay.
And they're going to start locating all of that stuff over there. And there's other areas in the city that we're going to talk to them about going and checking out too. But for now, it's a yeoman's effort, and it's a contribution from Florida State, which is really great. But but we will have to pay to get it cleaned up.
Yeah.
So.
And that's all of our boat ramps. I mean,
Yeah.
they may look good, you know, just looking at it. I rode by a ramp the other day. That looks okay, but man, we just don't know what's under there.
Exactly right.
And that's been fascinating too. So what is?
I was just going to say the detail that I've been exposed to through Greg is we're extraordinarily fortunate to have an experienced, successful businessman running this city, because if we had some Yahoo in there, we'd be in trouble. I mean, the negotiations with FEMA for reimbursement for this money, for the loans, for, you know, the coordination effort that it took. I mean, it's scary to think about. You know, you've got to have that level. We've just been fortunate. We're ahead of the game. We're ahead of the game because of the way this has been approached and going forward.
Well, we started working on a 2050 plan before the storm. And we were tweaking it during, you know, right after the storm, because we were looking at, well, let's see, some of the things that we think we won't be able to do for 25 years now, because of this storm, it's going to give us the ability to have some government money brought to us from somewhere else. There's a lot of things. 428 is the number that FEMA uses for hardening, for bringing you back bigger and stronger than you were before, creating a scenario which I would love to be able to put all the utilities below ground, love to be able to deal with all our storm water. The fact that we had such a devastating communication error with Verizon going down, they are now putting in 5G. Now there's 4 cities in America that have 5G, and I guarantee you before the storm, if you looked at the top 500 cities
We
that
were
were
not on that list.
we weren't on that list. But because of that, we will now have a level of technology in our community that will attract other businesses to come to the area. Sacramento's school system has really thrived since they got 5G. That can be applied to our higher education situations here with Florida State and Gulf Coast. Also Tyndall, the Air Force Base, Navy Base, everyone can have an advantage with this particular technology, which is, high speed.
Yeah.
And and then if we're competing with another city for some type of business, they go, well, we have to go for so-and-so. Yeah, but we've got 5G. Really? So it gives us a leg up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we will, the storm was devastating, but at this particular point in time, we have to take advantage of it. It took advantage of us temporarily,
That's
but
right.
only temporarily. And so, now we will strive to really improve our situation much better than we ever could have,
That's
and
why I
much
keep saying
sooner.
our future looks so bright, and
It does.
Panhandle, and particularly these little cities and all, our future looks so bright, and that's a great example that come from the horse's mouth who's been there. You've been at the negotiating table, you see what they're going to bring to us, and on behalf of everybody, we want to just thank you, and as outdoorsmen, we want to thank him too, because we know that's one of the things we get in these boat ramps. That's one of the things you want to get done too.
Oh Lord, I miss the fishing.
When are you going fishing again?
I don't know,
Okay.
but
We're going to have to kidnap him one day. Just
Well,
drop by there.
my boats are basically out of commission because the house is still torn up.
My
I
boat's
don't
running.
have
We're
power
going to run
to
by and
it.
get Greg and
Greg just got his back from being repaired, so
We gotta
the
get
problem is trying to squeeze in 2 or 3 hours to
We gotta
fish
go.
with his schedule.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye, Bill.
Yep.
Bye, buddy. Thank you. All right. Thank y'all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. Do something good today for your fellow man. Have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.